Hey everyone, I'm your host, Ek and Dio, and today we're diving into a true story it's going to challenge everything we think we know about devotion. We're looking at a profoundly moving tribute penned by Albab Abdullahi, detailing a harrowing event and just an absolute incredible demonstration of human loyalty. So this isn't just your standard recounting of historical facts, right? We're taking a deep dive into the absolute limits of love. It's an exploration of a covenant that literally refused to be broken, even when staring down suffocating terror. It kind of forces us to look at the foundations of our own commitments and ask, what would we actually do when the unthinkable happens?
The source material actually throws us right into the deep end, into a scenario that is almost too terrifying to even imagine. Just picture the sudden, violently quiet darkness of an abduction. The world as you know it just vanishes, and it's replaced by captive isolation. And in that exact moment, the captors offer the wife of the late General Rabi Abu Bakr an unthinkable ultimatum. They literally tell her she is free to go. She can walk right out that door, she can go back to the safety of her life. But staring pure fear right in the eye, she gave an answer that totally defies basic human survival instinct. She said no. No way. She absolutely refused to leave his side. She chose the shadow of eternity over the comfort of safety.
Section 1. The choice in darkness, an impossible decision.
Now, to really understand her refusal, we got to look closely at the psychological war that was waging in that exact moment. Think about it. Every primal survival instinct in the human brain screams for escape, right? It begs for safety, it begs for freedom. But that physical escape would have come with a permanent, absolutely crushing psychological weight. To survive at the cost of abandoning her husband, that would mean living the rest of her life just suffocating under unbearable guilt. On the flip side of that choice was captivity, unimaginably terrifying danger, and a totally uncertain fate. Yet, entirely intertwined with that danger was her absolute love and loyalty. So, faced with this ultimate ultimatum, surviving with a shattered conscience or staying in peril out of pure devotion, Mrs. Robb consciously chose to stay in the dark.
The author takes this deeply empathetic look at the reality of what her quote-unquote escape would have actually looked like. Let's say she had chosen the path of physical safety and left General Rabe behind. What exactly was she escaping to? Well, the text describes it chillingly. She'd be returning to an empty bed that would feel far colder than any prison cell. She'd be trapped inside silent walls, echoing with nothing but memories of the man she left behind. Her nights would have been entirely consumed by the absolute nightmare of knowing he was out there facing his greatest terror completely alone. So for Mrs. Rabe, a solitary physical freedom was honestly a far worse death sentence than any captivity she could face by his side.
Section 2. 4 decades of shared life, the foundation of devotion.
You see, her choice in that terrifying moment didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was the culmination of a profoundly, deeply rooted life together. It all started back in the bright, optimistic days of their youth, when their love was new and full of hope. And from there, they spent years building dreams together, navigating the crazy complexities of life, and filling their home with shared laughter and, yes, shared grief too. They made sacred promises to stand side by side, basically regardless of what the world threw at them. Because this wasn't some fleeting romance. This was 40 years of marriage. That is 4 decades of countless micro-moments that essentially forged an unbreakable steel bond between them. When you really grasp the sheer weight of that shared history, her incredibly brave decision to stay actually becomes the only logical choice her heart could ever make.
Section 3. The burden of betrayal, the hardest job on earth.
We also really have to acknowledge the unique resilience that defined her very identity. Being a soldier's wife, it's a life of silent sacrifice. The source material rightfully honors this as carrying the hardest job on earth. It's a role defined by years of waiting, by this constant, quiet undercurrent of risk, and by holding the whole family together when duty calls your partner away. It demands immense courage, boundless patience, and this almost superhuman, unbreakable strength. Mrs. Rabe wasn't just a spouse who happened to find herself in a bad situation. She was a partner in a highly demanding, dangerous life. She had this deep, stoic fortitude forged over years and years of military life. In a way, her entire existence had inadvertently prepared her for this ultimate test of resolve.
When you combine 40 years of shared dreams with the unbreakable resilience of a military spouse, the stark reality of her situation comes into razor-sharp focus. Leaving him would have literally been the greatest betrayal of all. After weathering a lifetime of storms together, the very thought of abandoning him to face his absolute worst nightmare alone, it was something her soul simply could not compute. It wasn't just about preserving his comfort in the darkness, it was about preserving the very essence of who she was. To break that sacred covenant, to walk out that door while he stayed behind, that would have been a betrayal not just of the man she loved, but of her own deepest values.
Section 4. Enduring the darkest times, sharing his fate.
And because she stayed, we witness a harrowing but profoundly meaningful conclusion to their time together. Through the absolute paralyzing uncertainty of captivity, she held his hand. She absorbed the terror with him. When the tragic ultimate end came for the late General Rabe, he didn't face the darkness alone. His wife, his partner of 40 years, was right beside him, fulfilling the promise she had made decades prior. And because she stayed for those agonizing final moments, she achieved something truly extraordinary. Her soul remained intact. While the heartbreak was obviously immense, she was eventually able to walk away without the crushing, suffocating burden of regret. She knew, with absolute and unwavering certainty, that she had loved him perfectly right up until the very end.
Real love does not abandon. It is a profoundly simple concept, yet it stands as the monumental thesis of this entire tribute. You know, in a modern world that is often incredibly quick to run from pain to prioritize our individual comfort over collective struggle, Mrs. Rabe's choice stands as this monolithic example of endurance. This is the defining takeaway of her unimaginable sacrifice. When the conditions are at their absolute worst, when the instinct to flee is overpowering, true devotion digs its heels in and just refuses to move.
Section 5. A lesson in true loyalty, a message for couples.
The author explicitly points out that this tragedy leaves behind a quiet, enduring lesson for all of us. Specifically for the couples joining me for this explainer today, these are the traits of true love modeled by Mrs. Robb. It is profoundly steady. It is deeply resilient against the unpredictable, crazy forces of life. It is fundamentally faithful. But most importantly, it endures when the path becomes completely dark. It doesn't let go when the circumstances get terrifying. This isn't just some list of romantic ideals, right? It is a living blueprint for resilient relationships, directly inspired by a woman who showed us the ultimate beauty and the ultimate pain of total devotion.
Ultimately, honoring General Robb and his devoted wife means we really have to hold up a mirror to our own lives and our own commitments. It requires us to sit with a very heavy, challenging thought. Is your love prepared to endure the darkest paths? It's a tough reflection, for sure, but it's exactly what this remarkable story demands of us. I ask you to take a quiet moment today to just ponder your own definition of loyalty. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'm Ekandayo, and until next time, keep seeking to understand the extraordinary depths of the human experience.